On this video, we're going to be doing a deep dive of the power of now and the 5 life-changing lessons that I got from this book. What's up, guys? Nico Rapkalis, glad to have you here on the channel. If you do like this content, make sure and subscribe to the channel. We are on a mission for the next 90 days to put out a piece of content every single day on our road to 1 million subscribers. We're starting with 20,000, and as we're building out our Skool community to 5,000 members as well. So if you want to learn more about any of that kind of information, it's down in the description, but let's dive into this information about the power of now. So I want to start this off with a story that Eckhart Tolle, I'm going to say Tolle. I've heard other people say Tolle. I'm going to go Tolle. That's how I've always heard it. But what is the story where does this actually come from? Because I first read this book when I was in college, and this thing flew right over my head, right? And so that's why I started incorporating a strategy that helped me retain this a little bit more, utilizing the audiobook. And I'll show you how to use this little hack to listen to this audiobook and read it at the same time to increase my retention. Because again, like I said, when I was listening to it, it was flying right over my head. Okay. But what is this story that he opens up with? Well, basically it's a beggar that's on this box, and he keeps on begging and begging and begging, saying, hey, can you spare some change? Hey, can you give me some money? And then finally someone comes along and says, hey, have you actually looked in the box? What's going on in the box? He's like, oh, it's just a box that I'm sitting on. And then it comes to find out that they actually open that box up and it's loaded with money. And it was exactly what the guy was asking for all along. And so what the reasoning for this particular story and why he shares this story is because what we're always begging for, or always looking for outside of ourselves is actually within. And so that's really the message within this particular book is everything we have is within. And, if you're just starting out on your journey of enlightenment or presence or your spiritual journey, that sounds kind of far-fetched, right? But the more that you incorporate the science and understanding this, and the more that you practice and get more reference experiences, you start to understand this. And that's what I strongly recommend. And that's why I make these videos, is to give you more so the action items and things that you can pull away from these type of books, so that you can apply it to your life and experience it, and therefore realize it for yourself. I truly don't believe that I would be as far along in my journey if I didn't go out there and experience things for myself rather than just reading books. Now, reading books is a great starting point and to understand them and conceptualize them, but taking action on them and really getting those reference experiences that can help you move forward in your life, right? So let's start talking about these principles that really drastically help me and open up my mind and my perspective. So the first one is that you are not your mind. Okay, you are not your mind. You are not your thoughts. Now, here's the thing: is that we have roughly around 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day, or some people say 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, and most of them are repetitive. And so a lot of times we identify with ourselves, with our mind, but we are not our mind. We are simply the observer of our mind. We have just been trained, and we started identifying with these incessant thoughts that continue to come in. And again, most of the time they're negative because we're simply programmed from the outside world. And again, on this video, I want to kind of explain a lot of the brain science behind this and why it's so important to meditate. A lot of these books like The Power of Now will tell you to meditate. But when I first heard that, I'm like, okay, cool, but what's next? And I realized the science behind meditation is so powerful. And I talk a lot about this on this channel. I talked about it on the last video. So if you haven't seen that one, make sure and check it out. About the brain science, about how it's so important to slow down. Because from a neuroscientific level, and that's again a lot of what we talk about inside of our Skool community. But if you're not slowing down, it's basically you're stuck in beta brainwaves. Okay, beta brainwaves, which is going very fast. That's the brainwaves that we get into after 12 years old. Before we're 12 years old, it's more of the theta brainwaves, and those are the same brainwaves that we have when we are falling asleep and right when we're waking up, which are perfect times to reprogram the subconscious mind. That's a different topic for a different video, and I shared that on previous videos, so make sure and check them out. I'll put the links down below. But if you're constantly in beta brainwaves, you're constantly focused on your thoughts. You're constantly focusing on you're identifying with your mind, right? So the more that you can step out of your mind, the more that you can stay present by simply just slowing down. And one thing that I highly recommend is you just slow down your breath. You probably noticed that you're just a little present if you followed my lead on that little breath, right? So here's the thing, is that something that I really got out of this book is that, the more that you practice this stuff and slowing down and being aware of your thoughts and just being like, oh, I don't think I'm good enough. I thought I looked silly at that dance festival or whatever it is, right? The more that you just observe it, and what Eckhart Tolle talks about is like, you want to get to a point where you're observing your mind just as you would smile and observe the antics of a young child, right? And if you get to that point, that's when you're getting a lot further on your journey, okay? So point number 2 is really the present moment is all that we have, okay? If you really think about it, that's all we have. As I'm speaking these words, every single word that's coming out of my mouth is really the only moment that we have. Every word that I already said is in the past, and every word that I'm gonna say is in the future, but like, really, we're only here, right? You can only hear this particular word that I'm saying in this very current moment, which is kind of a trip when you first hear this, but it's all about just becoming insatiably aware of the present moment. And when you really start to understand this and you just conceptualize this, understand that, like, really, like, if we're thinking about the future or the past, we're thinking about the future and the past in the now, right? So it's kind of a trip. And when we get wrapped up, the way that we get wrapped up in things outside of the present moment is when we're focusing on the what ifs and the should haves, right? So, what if I did this? Or I should have done this. I should have done this. What if I did this? But what if you were just present? What if you were just in the moment? Right here, right now, okay? And one other thing that's served me incredibly well with staying very present in the moment is utilizing our senses, right? The smell, the touch. Oftentimes I like to just kind of rub my fingers together because that keeps me present. I'm like, I'm right here. I'm right now. Right? I can feel my feet on the ground, on the carpet. I can hear the words coming out of my mouth, speaking into this microphone. I can feel the book on my fingers, right? I can see the smile that I have on my face. And when you just focus on your senses, that can really help you stay present. And when you realize that you're not present, you're also actually present. That was another thing that I got from this book of what he shared, is that it's kind of a trip. And when you start noticing the silences between the words that you are using, it helps you stay more present. And again, guys, the best thing I can recommend is go through this book several times. And again, I'm going to share with you kind of like my hack on how to retain this a lot better. But the more that you read this, because I've read this several times and it's taken me a while to really let this seep in. But I can even recall that I remember hearing that I was in line, I think it was at the DMV, and I was reading this book, and it was talking about those moments in between, the silences in between the words. That's what keeps you present when you focus on those. Okay. And then acceptance on what is. Okay, we have the present moment, and you might be sitting there like, I don't know about the present moment, but it's just the acceptance. And what we talked about on one of the last videos is the law of detachment and letting go, right? Letting go and just being fully present within the moment and accepting the present moment as is, because the present moment is all we have, right? So the more that you can come to the acceptance of the present moment and not resisting what the present moment is, that's when you're going to start alleviating the pain, because pain ultimately comes from resistance to the present moment. Okay, everything that has gone in your life is a culmination and is your responsibility. So the more that you can just accept that, the more you dissipate and lose the pain, right? It's almost like you just kind of like let go. Like, is this serving you to just hold on really tight? Even though this isn't like, okay, you got the present moment, but you're like present and you're like, it's tight, or you could just like let go. And one of the things that we talk about all the time inside of our Skool community is that it's all about having fun, right? Talking loud, having a good time, smiling, laughing, finding the things that bring you lots of joy. And when you can do that, you can simply just be present by having fun, because how many times have you ever been having fun and you're not fully present, right? How many times have you been laughing and you're not present in the moment? It's pretty much impossible. Okay, you feel those good emotions when you're laughing, you're having fun, you're having a good time. Right? So be present to the moment, but the simplest way to do that is just simply having fun. And as Eckhart Tolle talks about it, it's surrender, right? You surrender to the moment. And it's not like you're surrendering and getting thrown just into the present moment, but you're actually transforming yourself, and you're creating that new identity that is distance from the ego. The more that you practice this, the better that you get at it. And one of the best things, and this is really point number 4 that I want to talk about, is practice. Okay, you got to practice this over and over and over and again, because our brains, our minds are conditioned to be an incessant thought and think and think and think and think and think and think. So my recommendation on this video for the power of now is to continue to practice this. Continue to practice this over and over. And the more that you practice this presence and acceptance of what is, and not identifying with your thoughts and realizing you are not your mind, the more that you do it, the more that it's going to seep deeper and deeper into that beautiful subconscious, right? And one of the best practices that I've come to figure out, and one of the things that I've learned from this book, is the practice of non-judgment. And even into the little things, like not saying it's a good day or it's a bad day, right? It's just a day, right? And not saying like something is great or terrible. It just is. It's not that it's because it's sunny, it's nice, it's a great day. It just is, right? And the more that you can accept it and stop putting labels on things, the more present you're going to be, the more grounded you are going to be, the more acceptance of what you're going to be. And one of the other things that I was going to say with the acceptance is that really one of my mentors talks about is like, make peace with where you're at and then work on improving your conditions. So the more that you can accept it and make peace with where you're at, the more that you can actually improve your conditions. Her dad was he was in the military, and that's what they would always say, especially if they're in their foxholes, right? They can't resist that. They have to just accept purely what it is and then work on improving their conditions, right? So again, practice. And then the last thing I wanted to share on this video is the power of questions. See, the thing that I've come to understand, I learned a lot from this book and I've applied it even further, is the better that your questions are, the better that your life is. So if you ask better questions, you will be experiencing a better life. Simply put, I've seen that over and over and over again. And I was even on a walk last night, and even over the last few days, I feel like I've been hitting a little bit of a speed bump, if you will. And then I started going back to some of my notes from this book and other notebooks and stuff like that. And one of the best things that has served me to the nth degree is asking better questions, and specifically asking myself, how would my highest self approach this? How would my highest self approach this moment right now? And I would ask him, how would that person think? How would he approach, and how would he approach this moment? How would he be present to the moment? What kind of thoughts would be going through his head? How would he be accepting this moment? How would he disidentify from the mind and the thoughts? How would he just take a moment to soak it in? And the more that you can just ask those questions through the lens of how would my highest self approach this, the more that you can start looking at life through that lens and truly start appreciating life and operating from your highest self, right? And that is one of the most powerful assets that I have ever cultivated in my life. So I strongly recommend that you start asking better questions and getting to the root of things too. I think once we get to the root of things, it's really powerful. So typically you ask why 3 times and you can get to the real reason on why you're doing anything. Like for me, like, why am I actually making these YouTube videos? Well, I want to expand our message. I want to get more people inside of our Skool community. I want to really raise the consciousness of this earth and help people really discover who they are and how to manifest truly what they desire. So when I really break it down and get clear on that, it doesn't make as much. I don't have like, oh, I got to make this video, right? It's just, no, I love to make this video. And the more I'm clear on that, because I ask more questions and ask why more times, now I'm more clear. Now I can actually start pursuing things and have less resistance, right? So that's kind of the breakdown of the power of now. Now, one of the things that I mentioned earlier is that one of the ways that I really get the most out of this book is I listen to the audiobook while reading this book. And one of the hacks I've found recently is that you can listen to it on Spotify. Yeah, you can listen to this on Spotify if you have a premium account. A lot of people do because they like to listen to music. I certainly do. So it's been a really powerful strategy to listen to the audiobook while reading the physical book, and I retain it a little bit more. And then on top of that, I personally like making videos on these, but at the same time, I'll at least have a conversation with somebody, share something with somebody about what I got out of the book. So I strongly recommend that you take that up. And then again, if you guys want to learn more about our Skool community and how we're helping people really manifest what they desire, you can click the link down below. We have some really powerful tools that really set the intention, set your gratitude, keep you present as well. That really taps into the brain science and helps you slow down and get you more in those theta brain waves as opposed to being in the beta, which is how we get to the point where we're just incessantly thinking. So if you can slow down more, it's going to significantly help. So if you guys would like some help with that, make sure to join our community and tap into some of our really powerful tools. All right, guys, thank you for watching this video. Make sure and watch some of the previous videos. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed them, and we'll talk to you on the next video.